All right, time once again for our matinee show. This is Matinee episode 52.
Yeah.
What? Why is that?
I'm just laughing because I got to do the show. My throat sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah, he has lost his voice.
Yeah.
It's been...
I fell asleep. I had been drinking, and I had some damn spaghetti sauce in my stomach, and I guess I had acid reflux, and the damn stomach acid went up into my voice box and digested my larynx.
It does
I
seem...
digested my own voice box. It'll get better. It's happened before in the past, but man, it's real hard for me to talk.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, so I'm gonna run with the show with this sexy ass voice.
That's what I mean. You should do some phone sex with that. All right, so this week we are actually doing two movies from 2019, both of which appeared on Shudder, and we're also doing something a little unorthodox,
right?
Because we saw the original 1980 Stanley Kubrick movie, The Shining, on the big screen
in the theater, right?
In the theater,
AMC ran a special showing of it.
Yeah,
it was fucking packed, man. We had a good time.
Yeah, it was really cool, and so, like I said, it was also my birthday evening, so that was pretty cool.
It was a remastered version, but I think it's the same version that was on the Blu-ray. I think.
I imagine it probably is. Well, because I think a new version is coming out, with new extras and stuff like that. It's coming out October 1st.
All right.
So I guess that's why, and plus because Dr. Sleep is coming out and stuff like that. So we might talk about that a little bit at the end as well. But as I said, the other two movies we're doing are brand new movies, but they are on Shudder. And as far as I know, didn't get a theatrical release. The second one maybe did, but the first one I don't think so.
Yeah.
So the first one we're talking about is Hell House LLC 3, Lake of Fire.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the first two.
Yeah, I had to give them a recap.
So, yeah, I just watched it as a standalone, and you don't really have to see the other two. I mean, it probably does add to it because certain characters from the first two do appear.
Yeah. But
for me, it didn't really make a big difference, which I'll get into that later on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you will enjoy it more if you've seen the first two. But it can be watched without that. You kind of, but I think you lose a lot of what's going on,
right?
With all the little interstitial clips and stuff.
I came into this one at a handicap because I really don't like found footage movies.
I'm not a huge fan either.
So usually if something's found footage, I just skip it. I don't like it. But Jenny's seen them all, and Jenny likes found footage. So based on what she's saying, if you like found footage movies and you like the other ones from this series, you'll like this one.
Yeah. Now, I will say right out of the gate, and like I said, I'm not a huge fan of found footage in general. There have been some very good ones, obviously. I tend to prefer found footage movies that are, not just people running around with a camera. Although there have been some good ones like that, like Wreck and Cloverfield and stuff like that. But I prefer ones that are done more like a mockumentary, like Lake Mungo or The Bay.
I like those.
Or something like that, which are usually classified as found footage, even slightly different. Now, the Hell House LLC series is actually structured more like a documentary because, if you haven't seen the first one, and all three of them are actually on Shudder. I think the first one is available for free on Tubi if you want to watch that one. They're structured in the sense that the first one is a documentary about a tragedy that happened with this group of people who were trying to do a haunt at this abandoned hotel, the Abaddon Hotel, which is in upstate New York. So the third one kind of follows along with that. It's also a faux documentary. It's kind of coming from, if you saw the first two, I don't necessarily need to recap the first two, but at the center of the action there is this abandoned hotel. Now at the beginning of the third one, because there have been so many tragedies that have been recounted in these mockumentaries throughout the series, the town of Abaddon has finally decided that they're going to, raise the hotel to the ground because so many people have died in there. There have been all these disappearances and shit like that, which they went into in the second one as well. But it so happens that this very, very wealthy philanthropist or whatever he is, I guess he's a tech billionaire or something like that, named Russell Wynn, actually purchases the house. And one of his things is he's kind of one of his artistic hobbies, I suppose, is producing these interactive theater experiences. So he has purchased the Abaddon Hotel in order to do an updated version of Faust. Now, as I said, if you've seen, because the first one doesn't really go too much into the whole satanic cult angle. It's mentioned, legends about the guy that used to live there and stuff like that. The second one makes it a lot more explicit that, the person that once owned this house, Andrew Tully, was like a Satanist, and him and his other Satanist pals are dead, but they're still like hanging around the house, and they're trying to like lure people to the house to like get souls or whatever. So in this third one, it initially seems so the whole thing about it is that, Russell Wynn's theater group is, going through, they've been staying at the house for 3 weeks at the point that the movie starts, and they've been like doing rehearsals of the play, like inside the house and everything, and they haven't really had too much bad shit happen to them. Okay. And at this point, you get another, like a newswoman, Vanessa Shepard, who works for Morning Mysteries, which was a TV show that they introduced in the second one, although this is a different host because the host from the second one disappeared subsequently, as many people had in this hotel. So most of the thing is told from her and her cameraman, going through the hotel, making a documentary about the hotel and about these people doing the Faust play. And she also gives all the cast members their own GoPros, their own cameras and stuff, to get them to get footage of their own. Now, I don't really want to spoil the ending because it actually went in a direction that I didn't expect, which was kind of like, because there's one thing about one character that you think that his motivation is one thing, and it turns out to be something else. And like I said, I don't really want to give it away. I will say, though, that I think that of the three, this is probably the weakest one. The first one is obviously the best one. The first one really comes across as a documentary. Like, the acting is very naturalistic. Like, you get the sense that these are all like buddies that have worked together for a long time, and they're putting together this haunt, which I found a more compelling narrative, because I love, like, I've even watched documentaries about people that go around at Halloween and do these haunts and stuff. So I find that really interesting. So in this one, the characters, they're all actors. They're all kind of like over the top and kind of annoying and and shit like that. And they basically, and I think this was a problem with the second one too, is that they seem more like actors than like regular people. So you lose a little bit of the mockumentary feel to it, because these obviously feel like actors in a movie rather than just regular people being captured in a documentary. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there was a little bit of that going on.
To me, to do found footage correctly, it requires a lot of thinking, and it does. I think you have to be really careful with what you're doing, because you're really running the risk of just looking like some people and a bunch of friends fooling around with the camera. And
a lot of them do turn out like that.
Yeah, and then there's a feeling of that you're in the haunted house that you pay to go through in your neighborhood, once every year, you know what I mean? And I always get that kind of vibe, and it turned me off from this genre.
Yeah.
It wasn't this movie. This movie didn't sour me on it. I got soured on this genre a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not heaping blame on the movie. You know what I mean? If the people like the other ones, if they like this kind of movie, then...
Yeah. I mean, I will say bad. This one, because obviously the first one was a pretty simple setup. There was just like some inklings of like the urban legend about the Satanists and everything like that kind of mentioned in the first one. But I feel like as the trilogy went on, the guy that wrote and directed all these movies, Stephen Cognetti, he kind of got like way more ambitious with the mythology, and I think that's kind of cool because it wants to expand the mythos, which that's cool and everything, but I'm not really sure it was entirely successful. So that's why I think the first one is the best one, because it's the simplest, it's the most straightforward, it's the most realistic. And like you said, I think a problem, and I have this kind of problem with a lot of found footage, is that and I think a lot of people have this problem with found footage, is that when you're making a found footage movie that's just people filming stuff, a lot of the times it's like you see big fucking monsters running down the street. You wouldn't keep filming, for Christ's sake. You would just drop the fucking camera and run your ass off. You're going to get eaten, right? So it's like, so in a way, I think that's why mockumentary style ones like this work better, because there's a reason for people being filmed, you know what I mean? And that's why I like I said, ones like Lake Mungo, which I definitely recommend if you haven't seen that one, which is like a faux documentary, but that was like actually, if you watch it without knowing that it's a horror movie, you might think it's a real documentary. You know what I mean? That's how realistic it is. And, you know, the first Hell House LLC had that as well, but I feel like as it went on, it got less realistic. I mean, especially as the mythos got more outlandish, I guess I want to say. Like, it's, you know, it just got crazier and crazier. There was also a couple things I didn't like with... I felt like he wanted to expand the mythos to kind of bring the town of Abaddon, like the other people, like townspeople and stuff, and like he wanted to expand out on that. Like it wasn't just the Abaddon Hotel, there was like other shit going on in the town too. So I feel like there was a couple references to that, like where the main character like takes the newscaster to like this fairground. It was saying, oh, there was terrible shit happening here even before the Abaddon Hotel was built and stuff. But then it seemed like they didn't really do anything with that. It was just kind of like one throwaway scene and then they didn't really mention it again. So I thought that was kind of, I could see what he was trying to do, but you know, he didn't really like follow up on it, which I thought that would have been a good angle, like to kind of expand out into the town a little bit more. But all in all, it's not bad. It's not as scary as the first one by a long stretch, and a lot of the scares are very similar. You know, you get the clown is in it again, like the clown prop from the first one. You know, and it's similar type of thing where people are filming themselves, and then there'll be like something in the background and they don't see it, and all this other kind of stuff. But I really only counted like maybe 3 scary scenes. The rest of it is just kind of like
talking and
hanging out, like the actors hanging out, which like the first one was a little bit like that, but the first one was a lot creepier because it just ramped up and ramped up and ramped up, whereas this one was kind of like...
The live action gags I thought were pretty effective. They tried some CGI. It didn't really work.
Yeah, the CGI at the end of this looks pretty bad. I mean, I'm not gonna...
I would have been more happy with some practical effects. Just some damn, instead of making a hole in the bottom of the ground open, just put some, what they did in the 70s, just put a hole in the ground and have some red lights and a damn fog machine.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Or like rewrite it so you didn't even have to do that. Right, I mean, like I said, usually less is more, especially something like this where, you know, you started out with like a pretty simple found footage premise, but now you're trying to get like into like hell and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really fine line to walk, and I'm not sure it was entirely successful at doing that. It's not a bad movie by any means, and if you really like the first one and the second one, then you should probably check it out. But like I said, I think it's the weakest of the 3. The first one is easily the best one, and easily one of the best found footage movies. So, you know, your mileage may vary. We'll see how it goes. Like, some people seem to have really liked it, but most of the reviews I read said, you know, it's not bad, but it's disappointing. Like, you know what I mean? And that maybe it would have been better to have been, like, reined in some. You know what I mean? Because he seemed like he was trying to get, like... He was trying to go, like, way out with the premise and, like, build upon the premise, which is good, but didn't really get there, I feel like. You know? So, fair enough. But anyway, like I said, if you liked him, check it out. All 3 of them are on Shudder right now, so you can watch all 3 of them in one go, if you're into that. All right, the second movie we're talking about, also a movie from 2019 that just appeared on Shudder very recently, is the Japanese zombie comedy One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah, real good movie. It's not quite on the same level as Train to Busan. It's a very different kind of movie, though.
It is, yeah.
It's a trip because the first 20 or 30 minutes of the movie is a movie about zombies, like a low-budget, cheap horror movie, all done in one take.
Yeah.
There's never any cut. It's just right through the whole thing. And a bunch of cool shit happens during that. And then once the take is over, then it's another movie, which is like a prequel, a flashback to how they made that. And that's kind of when the movie actually kind of begins. And it's funny as hell. It's a comedy.
Yeah. It's definitely not
a horror comedy.
I mean, it's gory, but it's definitely very, very funny.
All the backflips that these actors had to do to get that shit done, and it's just funny as hell.
It really is. It's really hilarious. Now, it's even though the English language title of this is One Cut of the Dead, the Japanese version of the title translates to either Don't Stop Shooting or Don't Stop the Camera. So this movie was actually made, believe it or not, for $25,000.
Yeah.
And has broken a whole bunch of records. I mean, at first it only got like a 6-day theatrical release in Japan, but it was so successful that it just slowly started like expanding outward until eventually it ended up making like over $27 million, something like that. So the first, and then it made like a whole bunch more like worldwide.
But it was worth that because that, that first long cut where they did that whole movie in a single take, that took some planning and a whole lot of choreography.
Yeah.
To get that shit done right. And then they show you that exact same thing kind of happen again from the other angles, showing you what was out of frame and what the actors were doing before they got into frame. It's hilarious.
It's really, really good. And this, I don't think I've ever seen another movie structured like this. It's kind of like, you know, yeah, I've seen like other like meta type movies and other movies that were like kind of commenting on filmmaking and stuff like that. But this one is almost like, it's like a 3-layered film. Yeah. And like I said, now I didn't know hardly anything. All I knew about this was like the 2-sentence description that was on Shudder that said it was like, you know, a director who was filming a low budget zombie movie. Real zombies showed up and then he just kept filming because it was like super realistic and stuff, which is true up to a point, but that's not exactly what the movie is about. Like, because the weird thing that happens, and this is kind of like a spoiler alert because, you know, I'll just say spoiler alert, in case you don't want to know anything about the movie. Yeah, go see
it now if you don't want to hear any spoilers.
Yeah. So it's the first 37 minutes, and you're watching this movie, and it's like, it's funny, but it's like this really awkward, like, it's just this really low budget, it's like these terrible actors, and well, not terrible, but they're just like not great actors. There's like, you know, bad zombie makeup, but they show it that you know that it's a movie at the beginning because you see the director and he's coming in like yelling at the actress and like saying how she sucks and like he wants to see real fear and she's not showing it and all this other stuff. And then you think that real zombies start invading this warehouse where they're filming it. And so you think that that's how the movie's going to go. And then 37 minutes into the movie, credits start rolling.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck happened?
And it's like one cut of the dead. And then there's a title card. And like I said, the first part of the movie is like super, super cheap looking. Yeah. And it's like, you know, bad acting and everything like that. Yeah. And then after that, like, there's a really nice, like, sweeping shot of a landscape, and then it's, like, all really nice, and...
Yeah, it becomes a full-budget movie.
It becomes a full-budget movie, and then it says 1 month earlier, and then they're showing, like, the director and all the actors and everything, and, like, the whole lead-up, and it turns out that what the first part of it was, because, like I said, I did not know this before I watched the movie, but the first 37 minutes, like, the ostensible zombie film that they're doing... I was like, I have not seen a single cut. There hasn't been a single cut. There's no editing. It's just, it looks like it's been all done in one take. Like, I noticed it.
Yeah, they don't warn you.
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what it was. You
start noticing something's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, something wrong. They're not ever changing camera angles. There's no takes. You're just going through the whole thing live.
Yeah, there's no edit.
It looks really cool, though.
Yeah.
Even though you could tell it's a cheap zombie movie. And then when it's over, you're like, what the fuck happened? And
it's like, wait, it's only 37 minutes in. It still has an hour to go.
And then it goes into a damn mockumentary on how they made that.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's just great. So it turns out, like I said, so I noticed that without them telling me. But then when you go to the actual, like, big part of the movie, you find out that what that was that they were filming was that there was this a zombie channel called, and they were making a one-take, cheap zombie movie.
Yeah, and it shows the director trying to pitch it. He starts off with him pitching it, trying to pitch it to the channel. It's going to be done all in one take, and they're looking and they're like laughing at it. He goes, no, for real. And they're like, it's just funny. You just got to see it.
Yeah, they got...
How all the cast got recruited and all their problems and shit. It's fucking funny.
The best thing about it is that, so, like I said, when you're watching the first 37 minutes and you're not sure like how this is going to go, you know, there's some parts of it where it just seems very awkward and like the characters having like these random conversations, like really repetitive and stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is that about? Yeah. But like, as you're watching the movie, like you find out exactly why that happened. Like there'll be some things where the characters keep repeating, like, how are you? You're fine? Yeah, I'm fine. Wait, you already asked me that. And, like, it goes on for, like, a really long time in this kind of, like, cringy, like, The Office type of thing. And then you find out later that the reason they were doing that is because someone was desperately, like, off camera, like, going, you know, something fucked up, and, like, you have to improvise for a few minutes while they fix something that was going on back here.
The reason why one of the damn zombies looked like he was voguing is because he was drunk off his ass.
Right.
You find you with the crazy shit you see in the first part of the first part of the movie all gets explained.
It all gets explained, and it's just like, it's just such a satisfying, like, because like I said, you see all this shit at the beginning and you're just like, what? And you're not entirely, like, it's funny, but you're not, like, entirely sure. But then, like, watching it, like, every single thing that happens, like, in the first 37 minutes gets explained, and it's, like, funny as hell. It's funny as hell.
This one girl, she's trying to escape the zombie, and the zombie's sitting up there at the top of the stairs, and he's trying to be scary, but he looks like he's damn voguing and shit, and he never attacks. He just keeps doing his shit like that. I find out later he's just kind of an actor that constantly gets having problems finding work and getting run off fucking other movies because he's drunk all the time.
And then it's just great.
That's what I got from it, isn't that basically?
Yeah, he was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so it was just all this funny shit. Like, I loved the way that they just set everything up. And he didn't even care that, like, if people were watching it going, man, this is kind of like a weird or like a bad movie. But then he just, like, you have to be very, very patient because he's setting up all the gags that will all make sense, like, after you've seen, like, the second part of the movie. Some of the shit looked funny because the other dude had to run so bad. He had to, and he had explosive diarrhea, and he had to, and his zombie didn't make any sense. You're like, what the hell? What happened to him? He left, you know. Yeah, he was like trying to get out.
Yeah, the zombie's just trying to leave, you know. You never see a zombie try to leave. But then when you find out later what had happened is that he had to go bad. And he's sitting there and he pulled his damn coveralls off and let it fly. And the makeup woman comes up and put makeup on him while he's going. He's embarrassed as shit because he's got to get back in there and make another part of the movie. There's no time because it's all got to be done.
Because it's all got to be done in one take, and it's all live.
Take, and they can't fuck it up. You know, everybody's in position waiting to do the show. You know, which this is normal. It's just like, you know, in a stage act. Yeah. Just like doing a play. I've done a bunch of plays when I was in high school, and you know. It's all about timing and everybody in the right spot and everybody knows. So that's what they're doing. It's not really unrealistic.
The thing that I like most about this, I mean, other than it being funny as shit, and I really like the structure. It's like I said, it's like a 3-layered because, you know, the live thing that they're filming at the beginning, the story is that it's a director who's filming a cheap zombie movie and then real zombies come, but there are no real zombies.
There are no real zombies, no.
There's no real zombies in this movie. So, you know what I mean? So it's all just like fake.
That's in the movie that they're making.
That's already baked into the movie that they're making, but then they go back another layer and they show you how to happen. So it's like
all kinds of meta and shit.
Yeah, so it's like you see like all these people like duck down under the camera so they don't get on the camera like throwing blood on people and like, you know, shit happens where unexpected things happen, like one of the actresses gets knocked out and it's like then she gets back up and doesn't know what's going on because she's disoriented and they have to like take the camera off or put it on someone else. Like all this other kind of shit.
Upon further reconsideration, I'd say it might be up there with Train to Busan. It's just
it may be. It's a different type of movie. It's a different type of movie. It's a very
different kind of movie, but it has its own greatness. Yeah. Its own way of greatness, yeah.
And it's definitely, you can tell that
they cared about what they were doing.
That's what I mean. There's such an exuberance to the. It's like you can tell this was somebody that loves filmmaking and just loves the whole. It's just such a joyful movie. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Like the vibe of it. It's just really, really fun.
Very fun movie. They understand the genre and they're kind of being funny about the genre.
Yeah, not making fun of it necessarily, but
they're having fun with it.
Yeah, it's a very warm-hearted homage to low-budget filmmaking.
Yeah, and zombie movies.
And
the like fans of zombie movies.
Yeah, and a lot of the like sacrifices.
The actors that act in zombie movies. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, it's a super, super fun movie. And I can see why, like I said, $25,000. And this actually broke box office records because it made 1,000 times its budget.
Goes to show you don't need these big budgets.
No.
If you got a badass story and a cast that's having fun and believes in the script, you can make a fucking awesome movie with a short with short change.
Oh yeah.
And make a lot of money off of it.
Yeah.
But you got to have an angle, and you got to really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you really got to care about the project.
And everyone involved in this definitely did. It's a very, very clever conceit. It's a very... and it also... The thing about it not only has the respect, for the zombie genre and for horror filmmaking and, just for the lengths that they'll go to like, get a good product out. You can really feel that in it, too. But they also have a lot of respect for the audience. Because, like I said, the first 37 minutes, they were not concerned that people would think it was just like a bad movie. They were not concerned about stopping and doing credits in the middle of it. They were just kind of like, you know what, people will figure it out. Yeah. And
well, they're not going to leave early.
Right. So it's like, so I'm really glad that they had the respect of the audience to do that. He's like, just wait, because everything will be explained later on, and everything in the first 37 minutes is basically like one big long gag, and all of it will come to fruition like in the last hour of the movie as you see like all the shit that transpired.
I recommend the movie. 2 thumbs up.
I definitely do too. This is super a lot of fun, and especially
I'd like to see it again.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch it again too, because I'm sure I missed some shit. But yeah, so definitely if you're into horror movies or Shaun of the Dead, anything like that, then you will probably love this. So definitely check this one out. It's on Shudder right now. That might be the only place that it's at, but I'm not sure. I'm sure you could probably find it somewhere else, maybe Amazon Prime or something like that. But yeah, this is definitely recommended. Okay, for the third movie, we actually did see it in the theater, but it's not a new movie, it's an old movie.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot we can say about this as far as movie goes, because everybody knows it, and we've already reviewed it. But we saw this shit live in the theater on a remastered version of it, and in a packed house.
Yeah, I think it was full.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. Really, mostly what was interesting is like the differences between the experiences of watching it on a TV and watching it on the big screen, and how the audience reacted to it. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I did too. And like, I was super, super excited when it was announced. And I just happened to like find out about it just kind of accidentally when I was checking the AMC app. I think other theater chains were doing it as well, because I think I read on Facebook that somebody in another part of the country had another theater chain, and they were also doing it.
They're going to be playing Alien soon. We're going to see that one too.
Yeah, that's Fathom Events. They're doing that on October 13th, as far as I know. But yeah, so... And so I was so excited that it was actually, the evening of my birthday, which was September 26th, and it's like, oh my God, they're showing The Shining on the big screen. It came out in 1980, I was only 8. I did see horror movies when I was a kid, but that was not one of the ones that I was actually ever taken to the theater to see, so I never got to see this on the big screen, so I was super, super stoked.
Yeah, it's good on the screen. The sound is a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
You could hear a lot of the chanting and stuff at the end, where when the ghosts are starting to show themselves to Wendy. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Wendy does seem, to me, she did seem kind of different on the big screen. Her actions kind of seem a little bit more over the top. You know what I mean? She looks kind of over the top, goofy at certain times. There was a younger couple sitting next to me that were kind of giggling at her.
Yeah.
They didn't really get the movie. These are people in their 20s. But I think they enjoyed it, but I'm not sure how much they understood it.
Yeah, because it seemed to me that, like I said, the theater was almost full. I think there was only a couple of empty seats.
And it was dead quiet through
most
of the
I have never experienced that in the theater ever.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a couple of people like when Jack would say like a funny line or something like that, like when he talked about the cannibals, seeing the cannibals on TV like at the beginning, and people laughed at that.
Yeah, it's okay, he saw it on a television, they laughed.
Yeah, because of the face he makes. Yeah. But it's like, other than that, it was like super quiet. So I feel like most of the people in the theater were The Shining fans, were Stanley Kubrick fans, and so they had like a lot of respect for the movie. And like I said, that's the only time that has ever happened in the theater, that I've never heard like people chattering or...
Yeah, well, almost everybody I would think was in there was like a hardcore fan. They knew the movie, they knew what they were seeing.
Yeah.
The couple next to me are kind of a Hispanic couple in their 20s, and I'm just kind of using them as a barometer for the generational differences, And the chick was getting, kind of freaked out, not really knowing how to take Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Because Jack Nicholson, I guess, comes across as really got over the top.
Yeah.
To a young person when they see it on the screen. She's like, what the fuck? She didn't get it sometimes. You know, like, what's up with this guy? He's just a weird motherfucker. You know.
And I should say
he's
that
a lot weirder on a big screen.
I was just gonna say he comes across much scarier on the big screen. I mean, he's scary, like, you know, when you see it on TV and shit like that. But when you see his face, like his big, huge face, and those fucking faces that he makes and
his
shit like that,
his facial expressions are really almost kind of exaggerated on a big screen.
And that was one thing that I was concentrating on. Yeah. Also, the score, which, you know, has always been good, but it's really, like, very prominent when you see it in the theater. But I was looking at everyone's facial expressions because I was looking for, like, new things to, like, pick out of the movie because I was so excited that I got to see it on the big screen and everything. And one thing that I was just watching all of, like, his facial expressions and Grady's facial expressions and Danny's facial expressions. And it was just, like, so cool to see it. And like you said, I guess because you could see every single little tick of his face and, like, every single little twitch of his eyebrow and shit like that. So he came across as, like, much crazier on the big screen than he even comes across when you see it on TV.
Yeah, and I've been seeing modern movies on the big screen now for, almost 6 months solid now?
Yeah.
And when you watch this old Kubrick flick on the big screen, one of the things that you kind of notice is how kind of crude it comes across in terms of the edit and the cuts. It feels and looks kind of choppy by today's standards. But it's very Kubrickian. That's just the way they did it then. It gives it kind of a aggressive, kind of a sterile feel to it. Makes it kind of feel a little alien in a weird way. There's no way to describe it. It is different seeing it on the big screen. It feels more like some kind of an industrial documentary.
That's an interesting
with a bunch
point.
Of horror in it.
Yeah,
because it's chopped up and then there's black screens giving the date and stuff.
Yeah,
and the way and the way it flows, it just feels a lot different on a big screen. I didn't notice that. That same kind of flow on a small screen.
Isn't that strange, though? Because, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that has always been... I mean, when you say Kubrickian, that's pretty much one of the things they're talking about. His movies do get accused of being sterile. Stephen King, very famously, said that this adaptation, that was one of the reasons he didn't like. He called it very sterile.
Okay, well, then I picked it up then.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was my imagination. You'd have a real bright screen with a bunch of snow in it or a pretty interior, and then, boom, it's gone, and it's replaced by a black screen. With some little white, like a white font of some letters. There's not much there, and there's something about going through those big transition between light and dark, real abruptly. There's no fade.
Yeah.
Just pop, like you just cut it with spare scissors on the reel.
Yeah.
And put it together. It's not. It's very abrupt, but I think it was effective. I think it worked. You know what I mean? It's art. Film is art.
Yeah.
So. He wanted that kind of an industrial feel, something kind of cold and barren.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's, anybody who's read my blog or listened to me talk about The Shining before, it's like, I love Stephen King, I love the novel, but I think that his criticisms of Kubrick's movie were very misguided. I think he kind of missed the point of it. Yes, it's very different from the book. It's not as different as some people think it is, but... I mean, you have to respect that Kubrick, he has his very own vision, and he took the frame of the story and did what he did with it, and it's easily, I mean, not only one of my favorite horror movies ever, easily probably the best Stephen King adaptation for sure, even though, like I said, it's, kind of loosely based on the novel, but, the thing about it, like you said about the editing and shit like that, I think that's one of the reasons that makes the movie so... unsettling is because you get these abrupt cuts like that, and then there's these long shots, like the shot of like the shot of or the scene of Jack Torrance and Grady in the bathroom where they're talking. There's these long creepy gaps like in their conversation where they're just like staring at each other.
Yeah, they're holding eye contact, and it looks and feels a lot more uncomfortable on the big screen.
It really does. The
couple next to me, I could feel them kind of tensing up because it felt fucking very uncomfortable.
It's an unsettling experience.
And they were kind of Hispanic, and we're now finding out that the hotel is haunted by a bunch of old racist people. They are. When you look at the crowd, they were all white, and they fucking were using racial slurs and shit.
Yeah.
So, and they were from another time.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had killed a bunch of Indians to build that there, and desecrated an Indian burial ground, and then appropriated all the Indian stuff and the decor. It was about domination.
Yeah.
And you could tell that that's what these ghosts were about. They were just about domination.
Yeah.
And, you know, we went into it in other reviews. The Ullman says that only the best people stayed there.
Yep, all the best people.
All the best people. So it was royalty and super rich people. And so they didn't like anybody who wasn't of their class.
Yeah.
And they're ghosts. Okay? That's some shit when you think about it. Because imagine you're dealing with some ghosts that want your soul, and then they're looking down their noses at you because of racial and class differences.
Yeah.
It's kind of an alien feeling, kind of an alien concept. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That a ghost would be classist and racist.
Yeah.
Against you. It's a trip.
Yeah, and I guess that's like an angle that doesn't really get talked about.
Yeah,
when you talk about.
And when Grady's talking, you know, to Jack, in his eyes is just steely, cold hatred.
Yeah.
You know, you're dealing with something that's in the beyond, and it hates you.
Yeah.
That's some fucking weird.
And like I said, I think something that worked really well in this was that, you know, and especially seeing it again on the big screen, which I never got to do before, was that you could really feel the difference between this stark, sterile atmosphere and then, like, these grounded characters, particularly Wendy, who, like you said, I know a lot of people criticize her performance being, like, over the top and everything like that, but she had to be like that. She had to be vulnerable. She had to be frightened. She had to be, you know, her and her son, because her, you know, not only is the hotel turned against her, but her own husband has turned against her also. And so it's just this really good, it's just a really good juxtaposition. And I guess, you know, I've always kind of noticed it, but it's like a lot more evident when you see it like really, really big like that. Yeah. And I mean, when we were watching it, like I've seen The Shining probably 100 times at least. But seeing it on the big screen, like I had, you know, my free popcorn for our A-list subscription or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I said, well, it's this humongous bucket. I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat a third of this. But it's like, so I'm sitting there, but it, like, as I was watching it, I was just like riveted the whole time. You know, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to, but I was just like riveted because, like you said, seeing it on the big screen, it's like the score, the visuals, everything like that. Yeah. It just gives you such an uncomfortable feeling, like in the pit of your stomach. Yeah. And you don't really get that with a lot of movies. Now, we actually saw this with our friend Lori, who had seen it before, but she hadn't seen it since she was a kid. She said she'd probably been like a teenager, maybe her 20s when she had seen it.
Yeah, she's a cop.
Yeah. And she was like...
Yeah. Freaking,
she had a blanket. Like I kept glancing over at her. She had a blanket. She kept putting it over her eyes, and it's just like I kept laughing because she's like, I saw it, but it was a long time ago, and I don't really remember. And then she has a son who's like 18 or 19 years old now. She said my son plays the tuba, and he plays that shit from The Shining, that wah wah wah, like he knows it. And she's like, and he will play that shit like in the middle of the night sometimes, just to like freak me out. So you know that's nice.
Yeah, for me, you know, like I said before, I was going to go back. Because you can see their faces so much bigger, and they're bigger, and you see more detail. You just kind of, the emotion kind of comes across.
Oh yeah.
You know, with Lloyd and Grady, it's just these monolithic, high class servants of evil that just hate you.
Yeah.
You can see it a lot better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just, it's a weird concept that you got. Dead people that feel superior to you, that want you dead.
Yeah. Because you'd be like, fuck you, dead person, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I was going to say that one of the things when I was talking earlier about Jack Nicholson's expressions and how I could see them so much better, one of the creepiest scenes, I mean, there's a whole fuck ton of creepy scenes in this, but one scene that I feel like doesn't get called out much, it's that scene where Danny has gone up to the apartment to get his fire truck, and he thinks his dad is sleeping, but then he looks over and he sees him like sitting on the bed, and he's like, "Come here a minute." And that conversation that they have,
it's worse when it's bigger.
Oh, that was like so fucking creepy. And I've always thought that was a creepy scene, but because you could see every nuance in Jack Nicholson's expressions, and just the creepy way he was like, rubbing the kid's arm. He's like, "I would never hurt you." I would and all this other kind of stuff.
It's creepier.
Oh, it's super, super creepy. And I was just like, I got chills like watching that scene, even though I've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, if you get a chance to see this on the big screen.
Yeah.
And AMC might play it again. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, because like I said, I guess they did it, like I said, because Dr. Sleep is coming out, and they're releasing like a fancy new Blu-ray version
go see
of it.
It's going to be packed, and go, take your friends. It's a different experience than watching it at home.
And it was definitely, even though everyone was super quiet, which was nice, but it's definitely a different experience seeing it with other people
that know the movie and everything.
That know the movie, because you're almost like experiencing it through other people's perceptions also, which I thought was kind of neat. So I never get to see that. Like I said, Fathom Events is also doing Alien on the big screen October 13th for the 40th anniversary. Holy crap, we're so fucking old.
I haven't seen that on the big screen since I was a little kid.
I've never seen it on the big screen, so I'm very, very excited for this as well. But so seriously, do this. It looks great. It's like a totally different experience. It's still super creepy, even if you've seen it 100 times. And it was even more creepy in some places, I thought, just because you could catch like details that you can't see on the smaller screen. But so definitely do it. It was a really good time.